name is Chris Sanderson. This is Martin Raymond. We're co-founders of the Future Laboratory. Good to be here. Actually, it's kind of strange to be here because I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in Istanbul, but I'm not. We were there a week ago, ironically, for the World Department Store Forum, which was happening the day that everything kicked off in Gezi Park, which, as I'm sure you may know, was about the idea that a new shopping mall, which of course Istanbul needs another shopping mall,
it's actually got
was going to be built on this small park in the centre of Turkey. So, yeah, it's very nice to be here. Strange times, which is kind of the theme that we've got, that we want to introduce you to this morning. As Dominic said, we're going to look at this idea of megasystems, but also how retail is changing and how the store of the future is changing. But before we begin, we'd like to just play a movie that we made earlier this year, which really just sort of sums up some of our thinking about this idea of what's going on right now. When debates about God are replaced with discussions about the God particle. When you can buy from a brand simply by taking a snap of a stranger. When you can download a product and 3D print it in the comfort of your own home. When a company that employs 13 people sells for $1 billion. When preteens use their screen finger and glance-controlled technologies to engage with the world. The switch from the heavy to the light, the tangible to the invisible, physical to the metaphysical is far more profound than most of us truly understand. So we move from the age of industry to the dawn of the megasystems, where brands, businesses and corporations print products and dreams at will, where science and culture become the new pathways to re-enlightened thinking and secular spiritualism. Strange days are nigh. The key to understanding them is now. This notion of megasystems, I think, is something we're all beginning to get to grips with, the notion of big data and the impact it's having on our lives, as much as we often believe that we're really removed from this idea of what big data represents.
Just a short quote, technology and the platform shifts mean we will transform how we sell, market and innovate in the next 5 years. So if you think about what we're looking at, platforms, which a lot of us just see as search engines. What we really wanted to take you into is a journey and I suppose a construct that will show you how these groups, brands, we call them mega malls, are actually changing the nature, not just of how we shop, but changing the nature of shopping itself. So one is about the methodology of shopping, the mechanism. The other is about the landscape in which these transactions will really happen.
So let's have a look at some of the facts behind this transition that we're beginning to see. Well, we're all aware, I think, of the importance of Apple, Amazon, Google, Sina Weibo if you're in China, if you're in Asia. You know, a lot of these platforms obviously deliver enormous amounts of benefit, functional benefit to us on a day-to-day basis that for most of us we've grown up understanding is free. It's something that's just there. It's accepted and it's expected. And I think the sense of understanding that how they're redefining the way that we engage, the way that we communicate, and therefore the way that we consume is something that many of us in manufacturing and retail, as we've entered this arena of e-commerce, are only just beginning to realize the relationship that we actually have with the big four or maybe just one of these players, the five, without necessarily realizing it. So as life becomes more digital, we're fueling the rise of these all-encompassing companies and really heralding, therefore, the dawn of a new era. So let's look at some of the facts behind this.
Just look at those figures there. 2012, 61 billion Amazon revenues. But look where it's coming from. Media, technology, wine, cars, fashion. They're about to start selling houses, insurance, also looking at selling very, very bespoke luxury holidays. So what they're doing is actually occupying every bit of landscape that traditionally retailers sat in. Google, search engine, well, not really, because look at where the revenues are coming from. You know, advertising, YouTube, blogger, email, but all of these things are the collection points or the touch points with which you engage with the commercial world. So although they might seem to be searching, they're actually creating and harvesting the kind of data that retailers will need increasingly in the future to touch the customer in a particular way.
Bet you didn't realize that.
You know,
Apple is now the most valuable company in history because of its joined up hardware and software operations. The most valuable company in history. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we started up as the Future Laboratory, we were proud Apple users because we both came from a journalism background. So we'd grown up in the world of desktop publishing, of which, of course, Apple had a key strength. So we would speak to a predominantly business audience, all of whom were PC-based, and couldn't quite get their heads around the value of a computer company that, well, at that point, owned less than 4% of the market. So in a decade, we've seen a company move from a position of being or holding less than 3%, 4% of the market to being the key market player, the most valuable company in history.
I mean, it's interesting if you think about, you know, even Facebook. You know, the idea that something that is simply about connecting people can generate revenues. Well, if you think about some of the things I'm going to show you later, it's now allowing you to shop. Chanel are one of our clients. They have 8.8 million followers on Facebook. And they say, well, how do you convert that to income? There's a tiny little app called Solzy, which just allows you to type sold in the comment box on Facebook, and you turn Facebook into a commercial e-commerce platform. So it's a simple app that allows you to turn, well, chatter into commercial game. So that's the kind of thing we're beginning to see creep, some would say by stealth, into the market.
We're also aware, obviously, that one of the big shifts that we've all been through over the last 15 years, really since the uptake of internet and our engagement, therefore, with consumption through an internet platform, is this notion of the tangible and the intangible product. You know, 20th century commerce and manufacturing was all about something, was about product, and the definition of product was something you could drop on your foot. It was real. It was something that you could hold. And in those days, God bless them, it was also simple, retail, of course, was about a transactional engagement. You, retailer, me, customer, shop. I walk through the door, hand over my money, buy something, thank you very much, all very simple. But But of course, shopping isn't like that in the 21st century. We expect it to be seamless. We expect it to work across different channels. We may actually be buying something that is intangible, that you can't drop on your foot, because many of the brands that we engage with daily are totally intangible. They're conceptual. And at a point where a brand like Burberry is telling us that their stated intention is to move from being a luxury fashion retailer to being a 21st century luxury media organization, we see the shift in terms of just what it is a brand thinks it's selling. Increasingly, it isn't wanting to sell product to us at all. It's wanting to sell the peripherals that surround the traditional definition of product. Because guess what? We're no longer in the 20th century. We're in the 21st.
It's difficult to imagine. When I was talking to kids under 10, I was chatting about a telephone box, and a guy put up his hand and he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, a telephone box." And I explained to him that we used to go out, walk around the corner, go into a box and pick up an object and speak into it. And he was really incredulous. And he said, "Oh, I get it, Superman's wardrobe." He believed that those things, there was such a great detachment from his reality of what the future was about to mine. So hence, look at those people here. That's why they failed.
Yeah.
We work with customers all the time, with clients all the time, who tell us the thing. We do not want to scare our customers. So really, we don't want to go that route because we don't want to frighten our customers. I have never seen a frightened customer. I've seen a bored customer. I've seen an annoyed customer, an angry customer. I have never seen a frightened customer. The second point you always talk about retailers, well, you know what? We don't want to frighten our older customers. Within 10 years, your older customers will be dead. There is no reason to think about them. You have to think about the kid who goes out and understands that this thing around the corner is not just antiquated, but has a different magical significance. So this is really what we're looking at, is if you're a business in the 21st century, you may have to allow your customers to die happily because you want to survive as a business. These businesses here did not understand that. This is the point of what the megasystem is telling us. We must look forward, not look back. Or do we? Maybe there is a different way.
We had an intern who came into the office the other day, a new intern, who it was the first time they'd seen a fax machine. And because they got used to 3D printing, they actually thought that the fax machine was not just sort of transmitting information, but was actually transmitting the paper, that it was actually...
De-digitizing, like Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how, you know, because they thought it's future laboratory, it must be about the future. Yeah. So, these are the things you have to understand.
Look...
Has anyone ever sent you a fax recently, though?
Well, yes, you wouldn't believe it. We still use faxes, actually.
Companies in India require faxes and signatures. Yeah. Or really, as we show you, digital thumbprints. Yeah. So they're living in the future already by looking at the past.
Convenience. I mean, this is what defines the way that we think about our engagement with the consumption process in the 21st century. We want everything the way we want it, whether that's right now or later or wherever we want it. And that sense, I think, of understanding this debate that goes on, whether it be about multi-channel or omni-channel, however you define it, this notion that actually as consumers, we want things the way that we want it. And this is the turnaround that many of us in retail have had to actually get our heads around. That it's no longer about what we define and how we want to do things. It's really how the customer wants to do things. And of course, we're now living in a world in which the pace and the speed at which computing is changing, enabling us to actually get online quicker, faster, the introduction of 4G, changing the way that we buy. Amazon creating platforms, for example, that allow us to buy in seconds, smooth transactional methods, same-day delivery, increasingly now regarded as something that comes as standard with any good online retailer. And of course, we have to remember that by 2014, the majority of us will connect to the internet through our mobile phone rather than through a traditional PC or laptop. So again, the platform that we're using is about to, again, shift, and it's always something that's in our pocket. So we talk to our clients about share of pocket. You know, what's my share of pocket? Because that's where the consumer actually engages with our brand.
Just looking at, so you know about the network effect. I mean, that's one of the big secrets of the success. It's how network cascades allow you to both create referrals and to turn referrals into profit. That's really the trick of the network. It isn't that you connect with more people, it's that you connect with greater opportunity. So looking at Arcadia there, they credit much of their profit from work last year, from a simple video we're going to show you later. Topshop going on social media, but making the connections and allowing the customer to touch their collection through social media to buy, to sell, to respond to is what made the difference. So Chanel, with its 8.8 million fans, Chanel does not sell its ready-to-wear online because it says it's not the appropriate place to do it. Mad, complete madness. Topshop, on the other hand, says we will do it anywhere, anytime, any place, as our customer wants it. And when you see the differences in the engagement levels, you understand why networking in this sense is important.
We live in the age of everywhere, where increasingly our devices are connected. They're connecting to other devices, whether we like it or not, or increasingly we want them to, because we understand the benefit of actually having functional mechanisms around us that seem to make our lives more integrated, make our lives easier. By 2020, there'll be 50 billion connected devices on the planet. As you can probably work out, that's more devices than we have humans. I think it works out at over 3 per person globally. My maths isn't very good. Somebody can probably help me on that. But that sense of understanding how connected we're becoming, this notion of the Internet of Things, that our fridge does talk to our mobile phone to help order the food, that our weighing scales link to an app that tells us our optimum weight and how well we're doing, or maybe we have a mirror at home that again links to an app that is monitoring our blood pressure or our heart rate to ensure that we're well and we're staying well. The increased number of devices that we will find in our houses, that we find in our lives, that simplify, that connect, that streamline, that make us feel that our lives are better. This all is part of what we've called the personal information economy, which is driving the shift and the move towards the acceptance of big data. Now, of course, we're not there yet, because we get to get over the privacy bump. We're at that point in this decade where we were about 10 years ago with mobile phones, where most of us were saying, oh no, mobile phones and business, no, they don't really go together. I have a phone on my desk, I'm a businessman, and when I step away from my desk, I don't want to be bothered by calls. I have a secretary, or I'm way too important to take calls when I'm not at my desk, which was the prevalent kind of method of thinking about business just 10 or 15 years ago. Whereas now, of course, most of us are literally glued to our mobile device, and it's the first thing we pick up in the morning, it's the last thing we pick up at night, or touch at night. Kind of sad when you're in bed, but it's true. And that sense of understanding that we determine our success as a professional by our engagement with a mobile phone. And we believe that over the next 10 years, we'll go through a similar shift in our relationship to data. That what we currently regard as something that is impacting in a negative way on our lives, we worry about Facebook, we worry about data aggregation. Read the papers over this week in terms of the impact of what we're seeing with the idea of what PRISM represents, and we all fear this notion of data because we don't know, we don't understand. But over the next decade, as the functional benefits of data actually empower us and make our lives better, our relationship with data changes.
I think it's an age thing. I think some people worry about data. We did surveys recently with kind of under 20s, under 10s. They don't really think about it. So I think we also need to keep it in perspective in terms of what we regard as something that is dangerous. Google Glass. Anybody tried Google Glass? That's where the Internet of Things and everywhere becomes important. The fact that if you've got 50 billion devices, it means that data becomes accessible in a different way. That's why I call the difference between insight and information. Information is available free. Insight is when you convert it into useful ways of engaging with the world. And that's really what's happening. We're seeing a shift from the information age to the insight age, or the insight economy. So that's kind of the two big things we need to start thinking about with megasystems.
So the dawn of big data. Data that currently is out there is being used by certain systems. Most of us aren't actually employing it. We're not understanding its impact on the way we think about logistics, the way that we think about aggregating information about our consumers, the way even we as individuals are actually harnessing our data and using it to our advantage. So this shift that we'll start to see is really one of the biggest kind of drivers that will determine how we change as consumers over the next decade.
Yeah, it's the network effect, it's local, and it's also the death of things like the Yellow Pages. This is really what you're beginning to see now.
So this ability to search for things that add meaning to your life, things that you like, things that you want, is obviously one of the positive benefits that we see as consumers. So the filtering processes that we believe help when it comes to aggregated data is one of the clear benefits, emotional and functional, for us as consumers. What we're creating as organizations are choice architecture systems that enable us to actually present to the customer what we believe they're going to want, to actually anticipate their expectations, or to move beyond their expectations, to give them things that they didn't even know they needed, to actually filter a web page before they even see it, before they click through onto it. And that ability is really what we're talking about. So where does that take us in terms of impacts?
Well, I think it's changing the nature of retail, and it's changing, I think, the nature of e-commerce. Because if you look at those kind of terms there, they're, I suppose, areas of specification we've coined to look at how it's changing the nature of retail. So thinking about, for example, showrooming, what is that about? The note of gated retail, is that a positive or a negative thing? Walled rewards, how do you reward people for staying inside your system? What is the privilege of remaining? If I'm going to stay with Facebook, what are you giving me that makes me want to stay? I mean, that's the basis of all human encounters, is that I give something and I get something in return. At the moment, they are taking data, taking time, taking opportunity, or are they? So really what we need to do is start looking at it in reverse. What do you give back to keep me within your system?
So showrooming, increasingly this notion of omni-channel or multi-channel retail is being replaced. I think omni-channel is really clunky, isn't it? As a description, we kind of come up with another phrase which we think works much better, which is total retail, or kind of like total retail. It's just that idea that it has to work across any platform that gets thrown at it, because we'll just see more and more platforms develop which enable us to actually consume how we want, when we want, as we want. And showrooming is one of them, which is increasingly I want to be able to walk in a store and I'm not really bothered about having to take it home. We're losing that, again, that quite 20th century desire that I've got to have it and I've got to have it now and I've got to take it with me. Increasingly, we're returning to a society in which it's okay to purchase and have it delivered or receive it at a later date. That kind of immediate impulse to actually have the product and take it with you is changing, it's morphing. So I'm happy to walk into a store, to browse, to pick up, to feel, to look, to experience, and to maybe click with it on my phone or find an assistant and pay and leave and get the product at another time. So that sense of how showrooming changes the way that we shop online and then go to a store, and the way we go to a store and shop online is a very important consideration. As you see here from this quote from the head of experience at eBuyer, people now carry a global showroom in their pocket. What does that mean for bricks and mortar?
I think it means what it is. We call it BAM, bricks and mortar, because always when we say bricks and mortar, it sounds so dull. And yet if I think about what's happening in retail, the push towards experience, the push towards theatre, the push towards celebrating the few things that you now have to offer. The reason Selfridges is doing so well, and the reason a lot of other stores in the middle are doing so badly, is that Selfridges promises spectacle. So even if I can touch it at any point online, I still need to go to the temple to worship it properly. So it's a kind of a natural sense of how you create great moments in retail to bring people back. If that's what it's about, if it's about bringing them back to the temple, it has to look and feel and be like an extraordinary moment that people, well, what do? They Twitter it, they Tumblr it, they Pinterest it, they put it on Facebook. That's the beauty of a retail format that works in the way it should do in the 21st century. If it doesn't, my advice is to shut the stores down and go online. There is no middle ground. Middle is absolutely a pathway to, well, the telephone box or Comet or H&M, all of those places that thought there was okay in good value, relative product, reasonable positioning, a bright offer for the customer. It isn't. You have only two choices now. That's really what it's pushing us towards, making one of those choices work for you effectively.
So the consumer asks, why should I go to your store when I can buy it cheaper online? And of course, if you're stuck in transactional retail, then there's not much of an answer to that. But if you're about experiential retail, then obviously there's a reason to go to the store. I'm going to be immersed in your brand. I'm going to get an experience. I'm going to get something that I'm not going to get from being online. But clearly we're seeing people that are fighting this idea of the hegemony that our mega data systems are having, trying to compete against the Amazons that are giving us best compare apps, or ways of actually going into a store, price checking, and actually buying it from another retailer whilst I'm in your store. That idea of Best Buy from the US developing barcodes that are incompatible with Amazon's app as a way of actually fighting the power or the strength of Amazon. Probably brands like Target and Walmart being less successful by simply trying to ban Amazon product, the Kindle.
I mean, how many people think this is like loom wrecking? That you're simply trying to fight against the inevitable, flat earth societies. Because in some ways, that's really what we're faced with. Either we deny the existence of the wheel and its kind of contribution to history, or we say, actually, let's get on and use the wheel more effectively. And that's the point we're at with a lot of retailers. They're still trying to struggle with the consequences of the wheel, or in this case, the internet. And rather than recognizing it, they are using what I would see as book burning and loom wrecking techniques to try to stave off the inevitable. What did I notice about this? Well, when I looked at the age of the CEOs in these companies, what did I discover? Can you tell me? They were all over 53, oddly. And that is telling me something about their memory and their position and their desire to cling to bricks and mortar at any cost, and their pensions, I guess. That's
their
what
bonuses.
I'm thinking about. So we really need to think about what it is we're hanging on to. On the other hand,
gated retail. So this idea that I think many of us who look at e-commerce have got used to this idea that it's about ubiquity, and what we've tried to strive for is this idea that everything is available online. I think increasingly we're beginning to understand that what really drives success online is diversity. It's not ubiquity. So it's the idea that actually it's about specialism and it's about points of difference. Yes, as consumers we get angry when something is more expensive in a store and it's cheaper online, or it's a no-brainer as to where we're going to shop. But I think it's, don't confuse specialism with ubiquity, or think that you've got to offer everything on every single platform. Increasingly what we're discovering that this notion of gated retail works really well, that yes, of course I've got special offers in store that are only available in store. I drive traffic to a website by having special discounts that are available online. But maybe also I create special product that is only available to certain consumer groups online. And this has worked very, very well on Facebook. So Yves Saint Laurent, surprisingly as a company, working very well by creating special product ranges of its makeup collections only available to its Facebook fans. And saying, we recognize that you're a really special customer to us, you're our fans. So we're going to offer you something that nobody else will get. You have to buy it through Facebook. Mercedes-Benz are selling cars, admittedly only their smart cars, through their Facebook page or their Sign a Weibo page. So that the notion that we have targeted audiences that are prepared to buy and spend through social media is hugely important to recognize.
I think it does come down to rewards. And I think you forget that if people are present, presentism requires a reward. I'm here, so give me a reward for it. So ASOS, looking at doing exclusive sales on Facebook. It's a simple thing. Using that SoulSee app, It allows you not just to show, but to purchase. And it does everything behind the scene. You don't need to know about it either as a customer or as a retailer. You just both download the app on it. Using it to share interest in friends. One other thing I thought was interesting is the number of airline companies that now allow you to go onto Facebook and to work out who you can sit next to. And you can look at their profile and, oh, they look quite interesting, I'll sit next to them. Or, really? That size for 24 hours in the air? No way. So you jostle your seat around again. You know, fat people have come out worse than Facebook on those issues. So again, thinking about what are the kind of ways of driving interest using what ostensibly can seem to be a gated or a closed environment.
So where does this start to take us? Well, we truly believe that bricks and mortar retail, BAM, as Martin said, has a real place. Because, as he suggested, it is about theatre, it's about experience, it's about the emotional connect with a brand. As I'm sure we're all aware, most of us are no longer interested purely in transactional relationship with brand. We expect and demand more. So that means there will continue to be a place for bricks and mortar retail, especially for often analog brands who are trying to work out how they create experience. The example here from Polaroid, creating what they call their photo bar. Bless them, I think they're about 10 years too late. Of course, Polaroid really should have owned Instagram, but didn't quite make the connect.
They were offered it, and they just couldn't understand why it would matter in the world they came from.
Yeah. So, but that, you know, that's that sense of understanding the importance of place, I think. What's really interesting, of course, is how we're beginning to see how purely intangible brands are now starting to have a real-world presence. So Net-a-Porter, of course, being a really good example, that now they often have pop-up shops for the Net-a-Porter brand or Net-a-Porter collections. But Etsy suddenly actually transferring what they're all about as a completely intangible brand into a real-world experience by opening Etsy retail shops. This one in Brooklyn from last year. And you can see how they work because it's such a strong brand in terms of its identity that you understand exactly how an Etsy brand should look and feel in the real world. And it makes perfect sense to have an Etsy store. So, you know, we are getting ready for Amazon stores. We are getting ready for Google stores.
What will they sell?
They're coming to a high street near you. Will they be the saviour of the British high street?
Possibly. Chris mentioned it earlier, total retail. I'm about to lose my voice here. And what we wanted to look at is how brands like Topshop are actually using the connections within the network to create opportunity.
Have some water and we'll watch a movie.
Good idea.
Forget yourself. This room is hot, but we can make it hotter with your help. I'll dance with you. Till everybody's moving to it, everybody moves. When everybody moves. Shake, shake, shake. Oh, what you make of it tight, but you will. No, no, no. Only mistake is if you stand still. So shake, shake, shake. Oh, what you make of it, break it until you know, no, no. Only mistake is if you stand still. It's only up to you. It's only up to you. It's only up to you. It's only up to you.
So that's Topshop working with Google+, Google Hangout to create this far more integrated kind of experience online that combines with all that they're doing in the real world. For me, the really interesting point is this. You know, traditional retail was all about going into a store. And the one problem that retailers had was that actually they didn't know who their customers were. They thought they had all this data about them, but really it didn't tell them that much about the customer. You know, because customers are funny people. They wander in off the street into shops willy-nilly and go and maybe buy something or maybe not. And the retailer hasn't got a clue who they are. You know, if I'm a luxury retailer and somebody walks in from Taipei, I haven't got a clue who they are. I wouldn't be able to tell that in fact they're one of my top shoppers in Taipei and they regularly drop $15,000 every time they walk into my store. For me, they're just another tourist who are getting in the way and kind of, you know, they don't look right. They're in funny clothes and, you know, how do I treat them? I haven't got a clue. because those days of shop assistants who know their customers are long gone. But online, we've got absolutely no excuse, because we have everything at our fingertips to enable us to know our customers intimately. And yet most of us ignore the most precious information that we could have about the people that buy a product. We just ignore it. We're not interested. We don't use the analytics. We don't aggregate the data. We don't pay attention. And it's all there. It's just that we're not processing it. It's just we're not paying attention. And if we start to pay attention to know our customers, because we can know them individually, then we can sell to them individually. We can meet their needs. We can go beyond their needs. We can actually talk to their desires and their dreams. It becomes a very different world.
Good. I think it's cleared up now. What we wanted to look at here is, well, it's coming back, the notion of how, if you have all of the data, if you're collecting it, how you start transacting it in a way that the customer actually wants it. So thinking about the paymentless systems, using different methods. I mean, Google Wallet, being trialed along with Google Glass, quite a lot of systems are testing. Their ambition is to own the customer journey from which point to which point.
Yeah.
From the point of waking to the point, well, of not sleeping, because when you sleep, that's when they're actually doing all the data crunching and pulling it together. Here's a simple example. How do you use, well, basic information to drive sales? Facebook, working with a company, creating a set of hangers which contain data about products which are shown on the Facebook pages. Every time somebody likes the product, this number in the hanger increases. And what they discover is, for men particularly, choice isn't just about fashion. Choice is about popularity. So in these stores, men always go for the highest number. And as long as it fits, the guys will buy it. So what they're finding now is that by putting all of the collections up onto Facebook initially and communicating with the hangers, they're going, wow, look at this. Did you really believe that men were so stupid? Yes, they are.
And if you're doing that in advance, what does that mean in terms of your logistics and your planning and your merchandising and your buying?
Yes.
It means suddenly, if you're putting that information up 3 weeks, 3 months in advance, suddenly you actually know which ranges you're going to sell to which stores, the proportion of stock you might require, how you're going to merchandise your windows, what communications you might do, all in advance, because actually you're gathering information about your customer. Social selling. The idea that increasingly most of us aren't actually buying the product from the Topshop.com website. We're actually going to a Nuuji or a Fancy or a Fantasy Shopper, because there we're engaging with like-minded people, with friends, and we're talking about what our likes, our dislikes, our wish lists, what we want to buy, what we're interested in, and whether it's fashion, whether it's kit, whether it's photographic equipment, whatever it might be. Groups of like-minded customers are coming together to share their tips and their information on the best buy of the week, the season, the month, the year, where the deals are, and what's the good product to buy. And that sense of engaging with social selling is also really important, because it means we can no longer talk about B2C. The days of B2C are gone, because none of us are simply customers anymore. We are all buyers and sellers. So we have to talk in terms of being part of a trader generation. Now, you treat a trader very differently to a customer, because you have to negotiate. So the notion of relationship and the notion of negotiation, we believe, is pivotal in understanding how the 21st century consumer buys, either online or in the real world. M-commerce, just a little bit more about M-commerce. Martin touched on it earlier. And again, this sense of understanding that increasingly we won't have credit cards anymore, that our wallets are actually now on our mobile phones, because that's how we actually conduct our transactions.
So pay attention to this.
With Cardcase, interacting with your favorite merchants just got easier. And when it's time to break the routine, Cardcase gives you the freedom to explore. Discover nearby merchants. Look at their menu. Even read their tweets. When you know where you want to go, all you have to do is open a tab.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Can I get a latte, please?
Of course.
When it's time to pay,
It's $3.75.
just say your name.
Can you put it on Nelson?
Absolutely.
No cash, No credit card, just your phone and your name. Cardcase lets you automatically open a tab at your favorite places. Simply turn it on and go. Cardcase knows when you get there and announces that you've arrived.
Hi Nelson, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Doing well. Did you want a latte?
Yes, please.
You're a regular.
You're a
regular. Anyone remember Cheers? Yeah, the bar where everyone knows your name? Kind of great, wasn't it? I mean, that's what most of us want out of a transactional experience, is actually a sense of recognition, both for our loyalty, for the purchase we make, and for the fact that we're important, we count. And that's what this technology is doing. It's turning all of us into regulars. It's turning us all into something beyond just a faceless customer. It's making us people, because we're also sharing our likes, our dislikes, what we do, what we think, how we feel, how we behave. And if as customers we're starting to be rewarded for that, then that's making it meaningful. Yes. That's where we move beyond this nervousness towards data and sharing data.
I think it's reward through ease, and it's reward through visibility. Because if you think about it, what did you see there or not see was the absence of the credit card. You know, he didn't have to give a code, didn't have to give a number, didn't have to do a swipe. So the actual time to do the transaction was speeded up because he had set things in advance. And increasingly, that's the kind of customer route. The same here, you know, virtual stores, paying with your digits. Originally developed in India, strangely, in the 19th century, fingerprinting was developed because of huge numbers of people who couldn't write their names. So you use fingerprinting to identify them. Jump cut to the 21st century, the same thing. Massive growth in emerging markets. What's the one common problem people have is identification. When you see it tested in a mom and pop store in Delhi, and people doing this quite openly, you come back to the UK and you don't complain again about, oh, I don't really want to give my fingerprints. Why not? It speeds up the process. It's your quickest way to contact to purchase. Why not do it?
Scan the QR code with your phone and the product automatically lands in your online cart. When the online purchase is done, it will be delivered to your door right after you get home.
So
every that's Tesco in Korea. Yeah.
Every bus stop, every wall, every piece of surface can be retail. It doesn't have to be in a screen. That's the point of this video.
So we move into a world of co-commerce where we think about social shopping. We change our relationship with platform. We think about how any environment becomes an environment in which we can share, which we can engage, we can tell other people about what we want to buy, we can simply rethink the way that we engage with retail. As we saw in that opening video, you know, I take a snap of a stranger and it enables me to actually think about what I might want to buy. Oh, I like your shoes, snap. I'll buy something similar, or I'll even see if I can source that pair and buy them. So that sense of the change, I think, is very important. So just to kind of wind up. Increasingly, we're thinking about this combination between the physical and the digital, this notion of the phygital space or the phygital store, that we have to be more seamless. And the last thing we can do is think we've got an internet team over here, an e-commerce team over here, and a bricks and mortar team over here. Fatal. The two teams have to merge. They have to be one team. Seamless teams working on the notion of selling.
Predictive retail. You know, increasingly, the algorithms being collected allow us to do this sort of thing here, where Dispatched Monthly, this is a brand that's doing it already, they just send you things that anticipate your wardrobe needs for the month, because they have access to your Google Calendar. And they see all of the things you're going to, and they say, here's what we're recommending that you have. And you can actually buy it or rent it or fractionally own it in the way that you lease a car. So they're kind of pushing us along a route where our entire, if that was a health thing, we know that over the next month you're going to go on a massive binge because you've got 3 hen nights coming up. So we're going to send you all this stuff in advance to make sure that you recover. You go, great. So it depends on how it's targeted in the market that will give us the permissions to enter into that space.
So increasingly, under 30s just don't make the distinction between the difference between real and virtual. It's something that we see, so we need to think about that. Technologies that alienated one generation are now regarded as tactile, immersive, and personal. So again, that idea that, that kind of connection that we saw with Cardcase is actually driving an emotional benefit. It's not seen as superficial. And then the rise of personal information economy really means that data is actually not regarded as the big bad enemy. It's actually regarded as being convenient and ensuring that we are recognized as a consumer for our purchasing. Just our final kind of idea and clip here. I don't know if you've come across face deals. But this idea that increasingly we will be recognized when we walk in a store as a consumer, as a shopper, because cameras will take pictures of our faces and will recognize us as we walk into the store.
Check-ins gone mainstream. Check-ins provide a powerful mechanism for businesses to deliver discounts to loyal customers. But few businesses, and even fewer customers, are taking advantage of this. So we set out to evolve the check-in process by creating a seamless method for checking in and getting deals. Face Deals is an automated check-in system using passive facial recognition to notify you of in-store deals that are customized just for you. Cameras have been developed to identify Face Deals participants in a matter of seconds. To get started, log into Facebook and grant Face Deals permission. Next, verify your likeness to complete your profile. When a face is confidently recognized, the deal is set into action. Face Deals dynamically optimizes your deal based on your Facebook like history and delivers your customized deal to your mobile device, all while checking you in. It's that simple.
There you go, the cheers of the future.
How many people would sign up to that? I mean, how many people signed up for a passport, for facial recognition with passport? It speeds up the queues. Lots of us, because we saw the benefit. Imagine if that was what happened when I arrived in a city. So I arrive in Paris, get my picture taken, and every store then after that in Paris has got an identity shot of me and is going to offer me privileges and rewards and loyalty schemes for coming in. Most people go, great. We do it already when we go on Facebook. We're doing it without even thinking. This is asking you to think about it. So this is the big shift we're trying to summing up with, is that if it's happening, it is how you negotiate the change, not that you dig in and refuse it. The comets of this world refused it. That's what happens to that kind of refusal. It is now about negotiation. It's about understanding the journey and understanding the mechanisms that you have both as a retailer and, well, we said there are no retailers, as a trader nation, how we negotiate this future path. So what are the kind of points we'd like you to take away?
Align your brand with the values and the style of the megasystems.
So joining them by beating them. Introduce limited edition to take advantage. Everybody loves editions and limited editions. It hasn't gone away from the market. So just offer people more of them.
Use dynamic and streamlined visualization styles to demystify data. And I think we're going to see some great examples of that in the next presentation.
The notion of digital and physical. There is a marriage happening, and like all great marriages, if the mechanisms and the conversations are right, these things work. They only fail because one party refuses the kind of collaborations of the other. So really what we're seeing is this first generation of new retail that we need to embrace.
And integrate the megasystem aesthetic into your graphics and retail design. Understand that this is also a trend that's going to be about communication, the way that we communicate the importance and the value of data. We need to make it friendly. BFD, big friendly data.
Smartphone as a mobile wallet tracker. Look, the future is in your pocket, whether it's what we call a mobile or a phablet, like a kind of phone tablet, which is the next iteration in terms of size. That's where the future will lie. On to the next thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.